Good evening, I'm Carly Vaughn, and welcome to this week's edition of VTV News. On the broadcast tonight, Vanderbilt's all-comers policy comes under attack on TV, interviews with the new heads of houses on the Commons, and a Commodore decides to go pro. But first, after over a month since the shooting death of Florida teenager Trayvon Martin, prosecutors charged neighborhood watchman George Zimmerman with second-degree murder yesterday. Students held a teach-in last night focused on the stand your ground self-defense law currently on the books in Florida. Producer Kyle Blaine was in attendance at the teach-in and was able to capture students' reactions. Here's a look.
After to his concerns, saying that they should pursue him. It occurred that Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. And he's claiming that his actions were legal under Florida's stand your ground law. I'm very excited and glad that justice is going to be served because it's necessary, one, for the people in the powers that be in America to show that they do value Black African-American life, but also justice needs to be served and due process needs to occur.
Whole segments of the population who stand to benefit from your demise, dear dad. Even after you make it a point to prove those people wrong, they will use every ugly word and microaggression to provoke you. You should know that this is because you are a Black man. Years from my sister's womb, and yet you possess something that is so rare and powerful that I think it may be the only thing that can save us.
Once I heard the news today, I hope it means that justice will be done and that tragedies like this won't happen again in the future. That death in general is tragic, and if race is a factor, if longer-standing prejudice in society is a factor, I think justice should be done pretty much.
But I can't say that I'm pleased. I know that it came 3 weeks after, and people are always going to find something to complain about, but I feel like it's better late than never. But I am a big proponent of him being charged, and hopefully we take this to a conviction. I think people are reacting as expected because being arrested and being convicted are two totally separate things. So I can say that I am pleased, however.
I think one of the issues is definitely people assuming that our work is done. Because because a lot of times I feel like everybody wants to pick a common victim or a common person to attack, and Zimmerman kind of was that figure in this situation. So I think one of the biggest challenges is realizing that although Zimmerman may be behind bars and maybe finally going down the legal process that everybody kind of wanted, I really feel like that realizing that we have to continue to work to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And our thanks to Kyle Blaine for producing that video. Also this week on Tuesday, a rally was held in response to the killing with Vanderbilt students reacting strongly to the Martin case, calling for justice for Trayvon.
We're raising awareness about the incident that claimed the life of 17-year-old Floridian Trayvon Martin. And it's, I guess, the speculation around the effectiveness of the stand your ground law, in addition to the cultural implications that would allow an event like that to happen.
What we need to do is abhor the hate. We need to hate the hate and to fight it and combat it with events like this where we all come together and talk about what we can do, not only for ourselves, but for one another, because indeed we are both our brothers and our sisters' keepers.
I prepared something, but I'm not going to really read it. And I'm going to just read one quote from President Obama. He said, "We need to find our way back to civility that begins with stepping out of our comfort zone in an effort to bridge divisions. Civility also requires relearning how to disagree without being disagreeable. Understanding, as President Kennedy said, that civility is not a sign of weakness."
11 student organizations attempting to garner recognition status from Vanderbilt administration will most likely be denied due to non-compliance with the university's non-discrimination policy. The 11 groups have come together to form Vanderbilt Solidarity, a group founded on common beliefs that their organization's integrity would be compromised by complying with the university's regulations, that student organizations have open membership regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, and religion. Each of the 11 groups applied for registration with constitutions containing requirements based on faith for members to hold leadership positions. In further opposition to Vanderbilt's non-discrimination policy, Vanderbilt has come under attack, this time over the television airwaves. The non-Vanderbilt affiliated group Restore Religious Freedom at Vanderbilt began an ad campaign on Tuesday. The ad was funded by Mountaintop Media, based in New Jersey, and will run on the Fox network in Nashville. Here's a snippet of that ad.
It's up to the alumni to use their leverage. Call Board of Trust members John Ingram and Orrin Ingram now. Tell them you won't give Vanderbilt another dime until they respect religious freedom. Not another dime. Call now.
John Jenkins, the star of this year's Commodore basketball season, has officially declared his intention to forego his senior season and enter the NBA draft. The junior has led the Southeastern Conference the past 2 years in scoring with a total of 1,660 career points. This move by Jenkins makes the prospect of defending Vanderbilt's SEC championship title next year a little harder. In our photo of the week, here's Mary Clay Mannard, who this week officially took over as student body president. Yesterday, an induction ceremony was held in the Student Life Center. It's course evaluation season, and with the new policy allowing undergraduates access to these evaluations during the registration process next year, some professors are wondering if the evaluation system is as efficient as it should be. Professor John Rafter, Director of Teaching for the Math Department, advises students to not base registration decisions solely on evaluation data due to statistical inconsistencies between what one student deems average and another's opinion on the same topic. Evaluations will be available for completion until April 24th. Next year, the Commons will be home to not just new freshmen, but also new heads of houses. With more, here's Scott Head.
This past week, 4 new faculty heads of house were chosen and invited to join the Commons first-year campus, replacing Professors Bakarowski, Shrimp, Shields, and Dahlhaus. Earlier this week, I sat down with soon-to-be faculty head of house of East House, Dr. Gadd, and soon-to-be faculty head of West House, Professor Barsky.
We've had a tradition in the house of having this kind of intense household experience that we both love. So, in a sense, the mission of the Commons, which is to create community and to participate in a community, was something that for us was familiar from that perspective.
Our envisionment of what this would be like included a lot of interaction with a lot of really bright people, developing goals together, which is something that's always been a large part of my professional life.
The 4 were chosen from a pool of 20 applicants who all went through a very rigorous application process.
It's really fascinating. It began, very collegially with a little wine and cheese get-together. Prior to the interview, there was a very daunting list of questions to complete that I thought were very thought-provoking and really engendered a lot of discussion, between my husband and myself, and I think a really important sort of introspection about what is it you really want to do, why do you think you're good for this position, and what would you do in particularly challenging situations that your normal quote-unquote day job may not put in your path very often.
It's a rigorous and actually interesting process because as one considers the many questions that are posed first on paper and then in person by representatives of all the Commons, from students to house, to people who work full-time in the Commons, to faculty. You get a sense of both the pleasures and the challenges of what is, living in a living, learning community.
They are all excited to move in this summer and start a new chapter in their lives.
I think one of the things that Marcia and I are very excited about is thinking about West as a creative, safe space, this magical place where people will come and explore talents that they have or maybe that they don't know that they have.
It could turn into seminars, or it could just be, what do we want to do this Saturday or next month that will engage a group of students, widen their horizons, create appreciation of their surroundings and the opportunities that Nashville and Vanderbilt bring them.
Joining Dr. Gadd and Professor Barsky are Professor Leander and Dr. Cohn. For VTV News, I'm Scott.
Thanks, Scott. The original cast spring production is being performed this weekend. In anticipation, producer Lindsay Wilcox goes behind the scenes of last fall's performance to show all that goes into the production.
Our group has 15 members, all of which perform, and then the leaders in our group are the director. Costumes.
I pick all the costumes as costume director, and I have a budget. It was really small this semester, so a lot of people are wearing some of their own clothes, a lot of my clothes are in it. You know, you kind of make do with whatever you can find. It was kind of more being like a stylist this semester than being like costume director, because like it's modern clothes, so I had to make sure everyone looked good and everything. And then a little sewing involved. Those nun habits were not easy to make, but you know, they work. I really wanted to try and create connections with characters with color. There's certain storylines have certain colors to help the audience like remember who's who.
Well, the really cool thing about performing in a group like this is that everybody is a role. No one's just a little part. Everyone has a character, you know, and everyone's character shines at one moment or another, and everyone has their big solo.
And so it's a very communal effort to get to the show.
Great to see all of our work this entire semester kind of come through, and everything's really coming together really well.
To be on stage and, you know, see all our work paying off and being able to watch everyone else perform and be a part of it. It's just really awesome.
Thrifting, lots of thrifting.
Well, that's all for this week's episode. For more on these and other stories, visit us on Facebook.com at Facebook.com/VandyTV. For all of us here at VTV News, I'm Carly Vaughn. Good night.